Hey guys, this is Justin with East Coast Supra, and today we have a MK5 getting a East Coast Supra carbon fiber steering wheel replacement. So, to get started with this, the first thing you want to do is disconnect the battery, disconnect the negative terminal from the battery, and then get your trusty screwdriver. And you're going to start, there's two dimples on the left and right bottom corners of the steering wheel. You start off by impressing those divots and pushing in at an angle right about here. And by doing so, you're going to be hitting a trigger mechanism, this one right here, and it's going to push in and release that mechanism to release the airbag. You'll do that on both sides. So we removed our OEM airbag. You can see here where you're going to be pressing in on that to release that mechanism. Right, so we're going to use a 16mm socket and just go ahead and break the nut with that. And then once it's broken loose, you can go ahead and use a ratchet to get it out the rest of the way. You kind of just support it with the other hand or your legs. Once you use the ratchet to back the bolts out all the way, you'll be able to unscrew it the rest of the way by hand. You notice that it does have a line of blue Loctite on it, and we're going to go ahead and replace that with some more Loctite before we're done. And just like that, we have our OEM steering wheel removed. So we've removed our OEM and we have our East Coast Supra steering wheel lined up. And the first thing we're going to do is start unscrewing the paddle shifters in the back. There's one here, one here. It's off. Make sure that you disconnect the wiring and then it will loop right through. And we'll get the other side. Same thing, make sure that we remove the wire. Once your two paddle shifters are out, we're going to go flip the wheel over. Two more bolts on the back for the molding. Now, our top molding will be able to come off. Be cautious when pulling. There's a few posts that are keeping it intact. You want to pull from those posts. Don't lift anywhere else, or you'll risk breaking the molding. Now that the top molding's removed, we're going to remove the bottom molding. And again, there's posts on each side and the bottom. We want to be cautious again not to break or bend those posts. In the occurrence that may happen, you can always use a two-part epoxy to replace, repair, or just replace the whole unit. These are available through Toyota dealerships. We can also use plastic trim molding tools if you have them available, and this will help lift the molding up off of the steering wheel core. So we have everything laid out in front of us, our OEM steering wheel with all our OEM trims and electronics. We have our airbag, and then we have our new East Coast Supra carbon fiber steering wheel along with our carbon fiber paddles with red indicator. So we've removed all the trim. As you can see, the wire loom, it's all pre-molded, and it actually comes with this nice like plastic tray. So everything just picks right up, and we're just going to go ahead and transfer it right over, and it will literally just lay right back in, right as it would be in the OEM. Everything clips right in, lays in straight. And now we're ready to start reinstalling the moldings and the paddle shifters. So now we're just going to install and screw in our vibration motor. This is what vibrates the steering wheel when you have the lane keeping assistance in. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and transfer over our electronic modules over to the carbon fiber paddle shifters. We're going to do so by starting with the pig tool and go ahead and push. There's a couple push pins right here. I'm going to go ahead and push those up. Just make sure you got it the right way. Now we'll push up and out. And once that gets pushed up and out, this module is free to move up. Just be cautious though, because you do have a spring inside. So we're going to go ahead and flip the whole thing over and just unclips. And it's on these rubber mounting points here. So it will just kind of unclip or unhook. And then you want to be cautious not to let this spring just fly out, because if you lose that, you're going to have to try to find one of these. Okay, so now we're going to take our downshifter, make sure you match that up, and just hook it back on. It goes right in nicely. And just make sure you have a nice crisp. Make sure that's nice, that movement's proper. We'll take our pin, repin that side. Make sure it's flush. There you go. We'll do the same thing with our upshifter. So the last few pieces that we'll transfer over are just going to be the airbag supports. Once you get the thread all the way out, you got to kind of pull them to get them out, because they're set within that mold. And so to reinstall, you're going to go and push these into the new molding. And this can be difficult, so I do recommend, if you have a little bit of oil or WD-40, just a very, very slight amount, just to get it slick. So that way, when you're pressing it in, it goes in nice and easy. So for this post, we did go ahead and use some WD-40. These do sit in there tight and snug, because they're meant to hold the airbag in place. And so it goes in very tight, and then there's going to be a bolt as well that holds these in place. And you kind of have to work it all the way in until it sits properly inside the mold. And then we're going to go ahead and thread that bolt back into place. Nice and tight, nice and tight, nice and tight. Okay, so everything's been removed from our OEM core, and that's just all it is now, is just the core. We've gotten our airbag supports back in, our wiring loom is in. We're going to go ahead and pop our moldings back in. And you're going to make sure everything's lined up perfectly, and then just apply a little bit of pressure. Yeah, so you're pushing into like a rubberized mold. You really do have to push firm with everything that's going in. Now we have our top molding, so we're going to make sure that our wires are all hooked up before we put this molding back in. Nice click. And then again, line up all of those points because you don't want to break or bend anything. And just like that, it's going to sit nice and flush. Alright, now that we have our moldings pressed back into place, we're going to go ahead and flip the wheel over and screw in the top molding. Those bolts are underneath the paddle shifter. This you don't want to go too tight because you can actually pull the bolt right through. It's just that rubberized membrane. And we actually put a dab of blue Loctite on the back of each of these screws as well. The threads. Now you can see that molding's firmly pressed into place and secure. The last things we'll do is just thread the paddle shifters up. Grab a bolt. You just want to make sure you're firmly holding the back side of the paddle shifter where the module is located whilst threading and screwing this in. And then of course make sure that you have nice clean movements. And we'll do the same thing on this side. Again, just holding the back side of the paddle shifter. Make sure that we don't have any movement. These I like to put a little tight because I never want them to move after we've reinstalled. Perfect. And we have our airbag in hand. This is mostly the troublesome part of getting this whole thing going is just getting the airbag out. Once you get the airbag out, everything else goes pretty smoothly. So this is going to slide right onto the splined steering shaft, and with this you have to line up. There's a groove right here, and that's what we're going to line up with. It's going to be right there. Yeah, so we're just confirming that everything's lined up appropriately. And there's a marker on the inside. You're going to line that up with the marker on the splined steering wheel core. After that, you have your bolt, steering wheel main bolt. You can see it does have some Loctite on there. We're going to replace the Loctite and get it threaded back in. Alright, once you have your bolt securely fastened, 65 Newton meters in the manual, translates over to about 45 pounds. Everything's going to be nice and tight. Make sure you don't have any rubbing. Everything's flush. Mechanisms are still working properly. And then what we want to do is verify all of our connections are secure. This is very important before we put the airbag back on, because we do not want to puncture this new steering wheel. So we have the airbag. We're going to get our connections. So the larger connection is going to be the airbag itself. The smaller one is going to be the horn. So I've got those all clipped in. Again, we're going to reconfirm everything is in place. And if you wanted to even take it a step further, at this point you can connect your battery to run a test. Now I wouldn't recommend you doing that if you're working at a shop or you're skilled in mechanics. But everything should be secure now. We're going to go ahead, clip the airbag back in. And at this point, you've successfully installed your new carbon fiber steering wheel. We're going to reconnect the battery. So we're going to go ahead and tighten down the negative terminal that we've removed at the start of the install. We can go ahead and replace the carpet. We're good to go. So now you can put the car into the dyno mode by clicking the power button 3 times, or you can go ahead and start your vehicle. And what we're going to be doing is going through all the functions and making sure everything's proper. So to start, we're in diagnostic mode. It's going to roll through its. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and just function all the buttons and make sure everything is giving me command on the screen. That's all good. The menu is popping up, my menu button, my scroll is working, phone call, voice activation, and then your up and down for your volume. So everything's proper. Make sure your horn works, and now you're good to go. So guys, that's it for our installation video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I know our customer is super excited to get on the road and really enjoy his new East Coast Supra carbon fiber steering wheel. So we're going to let him get to it. If you guys have any questions or comments, feel free to give us a shout. And yeah, thank you again.